Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our session about how Aura Minerals used AI, and we as Indicium use AI with them to migrate from legacy system, PySpark system to DBT. So we'll be talking about, we have two sections here. The first one is mostly about migrations, a lot of fun here. And the second one is the specific on this migration that we worked and how we approach this work with AI. My name is Daniel. I am a co-founder and I lead the data teams at Indicium. We are a data consultancy firm specialized in DBT and the modern data stack, which is, and also AI right now. Everyone has to be, right? So we are focusing a lot of AI. We have around 6 years of experience with DBT. We're early DBT users, fishtail analytics phase. It's actually my 4th Coalesce. I saw the keynote today, so not many people have been for Coalesces, so it's good. We have around 80 certified DBT professionals in our team. And we are also, we work a lot of multiple modern data stack tools, such as Databricks, Astro, like Airflow, and we've been working with enterprises mostly from advisory on data strategy and how to organize their data teams, service, hands-on work, all the way to training and learning and development with these tools, with these clients. So first, we're going to be talking about migrations, right? So first, I want you guys to raise your hands who has worked in a migration before. Okay, oh, everyone, a lot of migrations. And who enjoyed working in a migration? One hand. And who finished the migration on time? 2 hands, because it's a funnel, right? Funnel analytics for migrations. Yeah, migrations are hard, right? So that's why kind of no one wants to do a migration, but sometimes we have to, right? So what we see is like whether you migrate or you don't migrate, if you're not following the right approach, if you're not seeing the pros and cons, you lose, right? So when we are doing a migration, there's complexity, there's data integrity risks or data quality that we always have to assure, and we know that sometimes the legacy system is wrong, so it's even more challenging because we have to validate something that is wrong. We have governance gaps that we have to be, like there's a lot of people working in this data, proprietary data, a lot of security issues. A lot of the legacy maybe not standardized, usually it's not well documented, a lot of work on getting the information. It's resource intensive, it takes money and time to do this, and there's a lot of risk of errors, and that's why like only 2 people raised their hands that are migration. And I was just talking to Ernesto from DBT, he was saying like sometimes you risk your job in a migration. It's not only the work, but it's your job, your career maybe on the line for this kind of work, right? But if you don't do a migration, if you stop, like I don't want to do a migration, you may slow down the innovation in your company. The platform is maybe not ready for what you need. You lose trust in your data teams, in your analytics teams, a lot of times because the business is faster than you are, right? So they start doing shadow IT, shadow data, now shadow AI, right? Something shadow. There's compliance exposure. A lot of these legacy tools are not ready for requirements right now of compliance, of security. Scaling is hard, right? There are different tools here, but when you're talking about legacy, let's say on-prem tools, it's hard to scale. But even when you're talking about cloud tools, the way you build these platforms, sometimes it's not the technology that is hard to scale, but the way you structure the architecture of the platform is hard to scale. We also waste talent, right? People don't want to work in legacy systems. They may want to leave the company, or they're doing repetitive work. You know, like I can use code. Like, and now there's an even higher push for these migrations. Like sometimes, let's say it's a no-code tool that has no AI, no way of using AI, and you're like, everyone is just using agents or IDEs to do this, and I can't. I have to be like manually. Who has worked with Microsoft SQL Server in the past? Like, no, it's like, how do we, like, you can even use an IDE there. There's no autocomplete, there's nothing. You just like, you have to copy and paste code all the time. And of course, if you don't have the platform that you want, it causes delays, it causes rework, and it's not efficient. So there's a time that you have to migrate, right? But it takes time to migrate. Like on average, on the kind of engagements we work, it takes 1 to 2 years. It's a typical project time for a migration, right? And it's not only time and money, also, traditionally, you start with a lift and shift, right? You don't want to modernize everything when you're doing the migration, because it's even harder to do the migration when you don't have a clear target goal there. So we say like up to 40% of the technical debt also is also migrated from legacy to target, right? So you're doing a lot of work, takes a lot of time, costs millions of dollars, and you're still migrating a lot of technical debt, right? It's just how it works. So it's slow, it's costly, and it's full of baggage. That's the reality. That's the manual way. Like, is there a better way? That's what we're trying to discuss here. But even before we talk about technology or AI, etc., I think it's good to know from our experience that migrations require a lot of expertise. Like, you have to have experience doing migrations and process. So we have to have well-aligned stakeholders, especially the senior leadership. If we have the C-level, the CEO on top of this, even better. Clear objectives. We need to have a very good assessment, very deep understanding of source logic and dependencies. That's very complex depending on the system we are migrating from. We should avoid those big bang migrations, right? So let's do it phased. We have deliver for a business area for this part of the scope, and then we go to the next one and try to be as phased as possible. And of course, we want to apply software engineering best practices, maintainability and readability in what we are building. So that's where DBT comes along a lot when we're talking about data, right? So it's not only migrating from, let's say, Oracle to AWS or from AWS to Databricks. You also need to, like, how can I have a better platform at the end of this? Sometimes these migrations, I have to be honest, are not a technical migration. It's a business migration sometimes. The CEO just have another agreement with this cloud, and it's going to be 20% cheaper. Let's migrate. Like, the data team is like, I don't want to do this, I have to do this. But how do I do this and have a better platform at the end of this that I can maintain, then I can have the best practices there, and of course, avoid a new migration or plan for a new migration, which is also something that sometimes is important. We understand that there's going to be a migration in 3 to 5 years. Let's see how can we make it as seamless as possible for the next one. So if we have the expertise in the process here, AI is a force multiplier. Right? We can automate a lot of repetitive tasks. We can detect patterns and flag potential issues here. That AI can do this for us. It also can suggest and execute optimizations. Like I said, technical depths. Maybe with AI, maybe it's faster, it's easier. And of course, we can free our engineers, our experts, to focus on complex logic, high-value work, sensitive information, and not only copying and pasting code from one side to the other. So the way we are approaching migrations is it's something that we are also approaching on different kind of work for data at Indicium, right? So we have a solution that we call Data Squads as a Service. Now we are calling AI Data Squads as a Service. In the past 8 years as a company, we've been collecting and building documentation, framework, training process. A lot of other companies have done that. And so this is what we have been calling this indie mesh. So it's our way of doing things. And we didn't want to just use AI. Right? It's not only using AI. Like, how can we blend our expertise, our frameworks with this agentic approach. So on this diagram, you can see that we've built agents that follow some way the way we work as humans. We have a manager agent, we have a project manager agent, data pipeline agent. All of them talk to our own MCP that talks to our documentation, our processes, and also to technology MCPs like dbt MCP. Right? So this is let's say the approach we've been following for this kind of work. And when we go to our use case right now, our specific use case, we apply this framework to a company called Aura Minerals. And with that, we focus on how can we make that migration much, much faster, right? So Aura Minerals, just a quick introduction to the company, is a gold and copper mining company in the Americas. They have mines in Brazil, Mexico, Honduras. Their headquarters in Canada. And they have been growing quite a lot in the past decade, let's say, and a lot of new systems, new mines, then you get a legacy, traditional enterprise stack, multiple systems, and let's say not well architected data platform. When we talk to them about migrating, what did they want, right? They want to standardize development. So now I'll be like selling DBT, right? Like a lot of the DBT values here, right? So instead of doing PySpark, like anything you want, let's use SQL, let's have a standardized framework, let's have native tests in everything we do, so data reliability. We want to be much faster on our life cycle, on our development life cycle. So agility and iteration on how we develop, transparency and governance, reduce complexity and cost of the whole data stack and data work, and apply good engineering practices, environments, CI/CD, everything that was lacking in the Pharma platform. So more specifically, the challenge was to modernize around 400 notebooks, okay, and around 140 workflows. So for many of you, that's not too much. Like if you think about DBT, like, oh, I have thousands of models, etc. But when we look into these legacy tools, these notebooks can have thousands of lines. These workflows can be very complex. They can be very redundant. They can have things that go up and down the upstream, downstream. That's really common when we have these tools, specifically they don't have the automated lineage that we have in DBT, like the source dependencies that we have in DBT. So when we do this manually, it's a lot of work. We have to usually call open draw IO, right? Everyone has done this, like just start to map these dependencies and see that it's a circle here. And it's complex. So our scope was really to safely migrate this. It was very important for them. They have actually quite a strong analytical culture there in this company. So the platform wasn't that good, let's say, but they use a lot of data on their day-to-day basis. So the scope was migrate this work, the PySpark code, the logic, the workflows, everything to this new platform with DBT and Databricks, which is their platform, their chosen platform. And our solution here, our goal was, let's use AI to accelerate this. And I'll just show you why in terms of numbers. But how can we use that? How can we use that last slide to accelerate this work? So it's really, as I mentioned before, combining our own expertise of migrations. We have done dozens of migrations with our own expertise that we have been building in the past 2 years with AI. Specifically, combining our data squads with our AI migration agent and DBT MCP. Early stages of the MCP, right? So we did this work first quarter of this year. So early stages of a lot of the things here, right? 6 months in the AI time is years, decades, right? And we build these proprietary agents following everything that I mentioned before. I'll show you the slides in a bit. And I think one question you're probably asking is, why do this? Why couldn't we just use DBT Copilot or Cursor or just like, you have that in IDE, why build a proprietary agent? And what our view is not only using AI, right? Even when we think about code translation in the past, there are tools, like let's say SQL Mesh, SQL Glot, for instance, that now it's part of DBT and Fivetran. But there are tools for migrating code, translating code. It's not that hard to translate code. But the challenge is we need to map the complex dependencies. We need to capture the metadata, orchestrate pipelines. We need to write code for humans, not just technology. Like sometimes it's easier to translate the code, but it's not readable. And it's not what we want, right? And we also need to make sure that data is correct, is verifiable. We have all the validations that the business will want, and this is usually the most time-intensive part, really, like the hypercare phase, the validation phase of a migration. And then we can use DBT native tools to test, validate, and audit, and it is something that's not as easy in another, let's say, technology or an agent that is not built for this, right? So AI can speed up the migration, but in our view, to make it sustainable, we need to apply process and expertise in this work. So before we started doing the migration-specific work, we had a benchmark for this client, depending on the complexity, about around 45 hours per pipeline. So it's a lot of work, right? No one wants to pay for this. So around 1 or 2 years of project, considering their budget, and up to 40% of technical debt. So maybe you guys have different numbers, but when we have, depending of the legacy system, maybe we're talking about 25 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours. But considering all the process from mapping the dependency all the way to validating and change management, it's usually around 40 hours per pipeline. This is our benchmark. Okay, so let's go to the specific that you guys probably want to see. We've built, the idea here, we've built a multi-agent system on top of DBT MCP and our own MCP, and some other external tools that go all the way from assessment to validation and getting the data right at the end, right? So specific agents for specific problems here. And something that we saw a lot of value was really focusing on having the best context for these agents. A lot of people, I think Tristan talked about this in the past, and also it's something that DBT is talking about a lot, is the structured context, right? Another answer for why you can't just use cursor. You need to build a structured context for this kind of work. Any change in data, it doesn't work, right? It's very easy to have it's very easy to like translate the code. It's hard to get the code right, the data right. So our approach is bring all the metadata we can get to a knowledge graph, knowledge base, right? So legacy data system metadata, in this case was Synapse, so a lot of Synapse metadata. All their ETL or ELT code that was written somewhere or stored somewhere. And also everything you can find in some kind of data governance tools like Purview, Atlan, anything, any data governance, a data catalog that the client has, we can also bring this to this system. And then we have, what we do, we already have, let's say, our own schema on this knowledge graph, and we use AI to map this metadata to this schema. So AI, we bring AI from, let's say, a probabilistic, a stochastic thing, to a deterministic schema in our graph, right? So we know that the data is going to the right place, that the metadata is going to the right place. And this is very important. We have worked with agents in multiple things here on the pipeline, like I showed you. And what we see is very hard to get the deterministic results that we need for data. It's not only, let's say, when we're building UI for a website, sometimes it doesn't matter, like the CSS there, maybe it's a bit different, but in data it has to be correct, and that's challenging. After we build this knowledge graph, we have another set of agents that read that context and start actually doing the work, right? So starts with planning, So how do we plan this? We have a set of instructions on how to plan, how to break down the work, how many, let's say, blocks of notebooks we should migrate in each phase, or like we have built some like a decision matrix of complexity, of time to value of this work, and we can kind of cluster the work here, and the agent can, sometimes it's only the agent, sometimes we use external models to do this, and then we plan the full work, and then specific sprints and all the agile development cycles that we follow. All of that is talking to our own MCP, which has our guardrails, our, let's say, DBT best practices, code style, everything that we tell the agent that he has to follow. And then everything is also, after we have the plan, we also have agents execute the migration, right? So what's execute the migration means is really, on this context, writing and validating DBT models. Right? So write the model, have the whole, now and we are very bullish on using Fusion because it's much faster with Fusion, right? Because it can do the static validation, the state aware, everything the Fusion has. If the agent has access to this, it's much faster for the agents and cheaper for us in terms of running these agents. So we validate DBT models, and then we also have a validation phase that, in this case, we use like an audit helper package, like standard DBT packages, that we can test if the data is correct. If it's not correct, goes back, the agent goes back, tries to fix it. If he can't fix it, a human comes along. Okay, let's review it, let's fix this. Right? So it's really like a human in the loop approach when we can't get the data right. And of course, at the end of this, the agent also verifies if the task that was planned is finished. Right? So end-to-end, like a human would do, but you can just scale this much faster and have multiple agents working in parallel. So let's talk about results here. We're talking about 45 hours. Whoops. 45 hours. We managed to do this work in 6 hours. So it's around, like the title of the presentation, 7 times faster. We are actually, this was the first quarter of the year, but we have had some migrations after this, different clients, and we are usually seeing around 70 to 80% reduction in time. That's benchmark for this kind of work. Specifically because migrations, they're complex, but they're kind of fixed scope, right? We know what the client wants, which is more challenging when you're talking about data products and building data pipelines when the business users sometimes don't know what they want. So it's more complex there because the requirements are not really ready. But here, we kind of have a more fixed scope requirements, and it's easier. We can make it faster than, say, in a normal data work. So our humans, our engineers, focus really on reviewing complex logic, validating what the AI wrote, and then doing the change management, aligning with client, etc. And what's good to hear is we were able not only to do the lift and shift, but also to modernize a lot of the work, because the AI, we also have some guardrails and instructions on, like, if you're seeing this, you can change the way the filter is, you can, we do some, on the assessment phase, we already map redundancies, models that could be adapted, especially on the staging intermediate layers. So we keep the same on the end because there's another problem with migrations. We need to migrate the consumption, right? So if you change the models, everything breaks in the end. So you also have to have let's say, a phased approach on changing the consumption or the BI tools or all the APIs that read the data. But on the intermediate level, you can change a lot of stuff. You can change the way the staging models are built, the intermediate models are built. And we also managed to improve what we expected to be 60, 70% code quality compliance to around 95% with AI. So the code is usually really good when we do this. And of course, I mean, like what the client really wanted and what we managed to do here is reduce from 2 years to 3 months this work. So cheaper and faster, right? That's what we are seeing for almost all migration projects that we are working on. So in summary, migrations, like you all had experience to work in migrations before, they are usually slow, they cost a lot of money, they can risk your career, but they are necessary, right? We have to do migrations. Especially when we are fast-growing companies, we have to do migrations all the time because you can't just build a platform that's too big when you're not that big, so you have to do that. And if we can combine this, our own human expertise, so you guys also have done migrations in the past, you know what works, what doesn't work, and if you can combine that with AI, and not only replace that with AI, you can do migrations faster and more sustainable for yourselves, for your clients, like this case here. And that's all for me. Thank you for joining us. If you, I have a Q&A, I think I still have 5 minutes, is that right? So I have a Q&A. My leader here, Igor, is also, he worked a lot on this project. He can answer more complex questions. And if you guys are curious and want to see more, you can come to our booth at the Discovery Hall. Okay? So thank you very much, and I'll have 4 minutes for questions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, there's a microphone. I didn't see the microphone.
Yeah, really cool presentation, thank you. I was just wondering, in terms of like your proprietary MCP and stuff, have you managed to recreate this elsewhere without like different languages to DBT?
Take the microphone, Igor.
You mean, for example, like DLT in Databricks, for example, or I don't know?
Yes, this was like a PySpark example.
Yes, we did. We have examples for Alteryx. We have SSS, SAS, Click. We did a lot of examples for this. The challenge is to gather this context, right? For example, Alteryx, you can export an Alteryx workflow into XML file. And then you can map this and then model this into an L4j. In this case, we're using L4j for knowledge graph. And then have all the dependencies, all the data objects that you need for this, and then start the migration. But we have done this for other cases. What is your case, actually?
I was just curious.
Oh, okay.
We are also Alteryx consultants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The challenge we see, like, it's modular. That's why we have different agents. And if you keep it modular, we can have a different, let's say, source assessment agent that understand different systems, right? So we can use, like Igor mentioned, SAS, Microsoft SQL Server, Alteryx, and then the challenge is really getting all the logs and some of them we have to export the logs. But it was impossible to do with humans, right? So it's so many if-else's that you have to build, but with AI you can actually map a log to the schemas that we have in the knowledge graph. Yeah.
There's a question here.
Hi. So I wanted to ask you, have you developed these agents in-house that are that you apply cross-project and migration, or is it kind of a beginning phase at the start of any engagement where you're spinning up specific agents for said migration that's coming up?
I'll answer it and Igor can complement. But yeah, there is let's say, it's hard to have, which is kind of good for us as consultancy. I don't think it's easy to have a SaaS product for this, like just plug and play stuff. You have to adapt. Like the agents have to, these requirements have to adapt. But in the bottom there are foundational models, right? So Claude and GPT-4, it's really changing the requirements and working on this, like, the bulk of the work of the agents are fixed, and then we change parts of this. Like on the source system, we have a specific agent for each source system, but on the DBT phase, let's say the execute models, they don't change a lot. They know how to work. I don't know if I answered you. Yeah?
Any other questions? Am I allowed a question?
Yeah? Sure.
Was there some way that you showed like early value to the stakeholders? So obviously the migration was like, you know, on hyper speed, but like anything that was like, and now look at what you have, and anything specific that you've used to try to like pull them further in?
Something that we are using right now that is working really well in the assessment phase, we call it, we have a flash assessment. So we use an agent to do the assessment, and we have, let's say, like a Pareto, I don't know how it's in English. Pareto, like a 80-20, and also an ABC curve. So we do like, we have like thousands of models. We are able to see the usage, the metadata really fast, and the agents can like prioritize. And that's also something that the clients are enjoying a lot. So because they usually have like 5,000 things to migrate, we say like maybe you just need to migrate 1,000 or 500 because all the rest no one uses. And it's really hard to do this analysis in like traditionally, and with these agents it's much faster. So this is something we are using a lot right now. And of course, because it's faster, you can migrate a smaller part of the work much faster. Let's say in a MVP phase, which is something they also like a lot.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the scoping of it using
Yeah,
AI to
well,
scope.
it's something
That's amazing.
I didn't mention here a lot, but I had a couple of projects like in the past few years, big ones, that just the scoping phase, if we managed to reduce like 70% of the work, because the client was like, we need to migrate everything. Because usually they go to the business areas like, what do you want to migrate? It's like everything. And then after you do like, but this model, no one has access for a year. So maybe you don't need to migrate this. It's going to cost you $10,000 to migrate this model that no one uses. So we are able to reduce the cost just by reducing the scope. Yep.
All right, thanks. What about security for the LLM models for you to approach a customer and use it there?
It's a good question. So there are multiple ways depending on the client's, say, restrictions. What we apply for some clients that are not too restrictive, we use the zero data retention policies for these models, for Cursor, et cetera. So there's no data retention. Some clients, usually they're okay with this. Some clients may be more like, no, that's not enough. I have to be on my virtual cloud, my private cloud. But now all the private clouds, almost everyone has their models inside there. You can use your models in your VPC, for instance. So we can adapt this work to use the client's agents that are like, maybe it's not the best agent that we can use, but they're usually good enough for this kind of work. They already, maybe it's not 6 hours, it's going to take 8 hours, but it's still a lot less. So we try to follow the client's AI security best practices on this kind of work. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, guys.